Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the distinction between pioneers, explorers, nation builders, and immigrants that arrive into an already fully developed society, and they seek to extract from it rather than to contribute to it or build anything new or so on. Now, there's a claim that goes around, we're all a nation of immigrants, and that the pilgrims that came to Plymouth Rock, for example, in northern America, they're the same, just the same, nothing different about them to the illiterate Mexican peasants that are arriving, trying to scam jobs, or Indians that are arriving, trying to scam jobs, in whatever, truck driving or whatever it might be, picking crops and so on. This is a very different sort of situation. The Mexicans aren't coming, or the Latinos aren't coming to build the farm from the ground up, to irrigate and to do all the work and plant the crop, and create a farm out of absolutely barren land. No, they're not doing that. They're coming along to already existing infrastructure with roads and electricity and farms and distribution and storage and warehousing and everything. The entire infrastructure from top to bottom, running water and everything is already in place. So they're contributing nothing to that. Now, I'm sure there must be an exception out of the tens of millions of Mexicans that have come. I'm sure there must be an exception. Maybe one of them did dig an irrigation trench at one time. But the point is that they're coming to an already fully developed economy and society, and a fully developed nation state. So with laws that apply universally or federally at least. So now this is very different to the sort of people that came to North America in the beginning, and or in the earlier days of European colonization, of course. But they're very different from those people. Now, wherever the Europeans went, particularly the British, but wherever the Europeans went, they created the nucleus of a nation state. They were nation builders, and again, particularly the British, but they were nation builders, and they wanted to create a nation, a self-sufficient, in economic terms, an economically self-sufficient nation state. Now, first off, it might have been a colony because there were small numbers of people there, and there was competition for land with other European places. For example, the French and British pushing and shoving and so on over North America would be, or the Spanish and British competition for land again in North America and parts of South America, and the islands in the Caribbean. They were frequently changing hands. But the building of a nation state was very much something that the Europeans did. Now, it's hard to find that same desire to build a nation state, appreciating these are far-flung areas. It can take months to get to them by sea and so on. So you want a degree of self-sufficiency, unlike, say, land that might be immediately adjacent to your own, where you would seek centralized control over it. So, and where there would be some things already there, given the advanced nature of West European social structures and technology. But here in these places where, again, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, where the British were primarily nation builders, so their attempt to put value into the, building roads, building dams, building canals, irrigation systems, farming, using, West European which at the time were advanced farming techniques, and all the other infrastructure, storage, transport, ports, ships, and all this sort of thing is only an advanced technology a society with advanced technology could put in. So these people were pioneers. So they came to a land where none of these things existed, and were able to put all of them in place. So a lot of these places they went were still sort of really in the Stone Age or not far off it. So they were jumping thousands of years in social and technological and organizational development. They were advancing these societies thousands of years just in one jump, something they never could have even done. But they were building nations. They were explorers going out in the middle of nowhere with hostile tribes and in land that was unfamiliar, going across all sorts of different weathers and terrains and wild animals and goodness knows what. And these were pioneers. They were explorers. They were nation builders. They were creators. Now, the things that were of value to West Europeans, things like, for example, things like gold or silver or even iron and coal, all those sorts of things, they weren't of value to the natives. The natives saw no value in those things. They weren't technologically advanced enough to even basically comprehend what these things were, let alone use them. So when the Europeans arrived with things like goods made of iron and later steel and things that were crafted by the rudimentary machines of the day, these were wow. I mean, these items, axes, knives, would have had a huge wow factor for natives again that were pretty much in the Stone Age. Now, in the cases like in Australia, the Aboriginals, then there was supposed to be approximately 1 million, give or take 1 million in the whole of Australia, less than just a medium-sized city would be today in terms of population. And there was allegedly many hundreds of different what were called tribal entities. They try and call them nations, but roaming hunter-gatherer Stone Age tribes. And this idea that there was a nation of Aborigines with a government and this sort of thing, of course, is nonsense. Those things didn't exist. Those things like a national government, laws, even a written language was something that was really not seen in these new lands, such as Australia and North America and so on. So the distinction between these two things, the immigrant that arrives to an already fully developed society and one that builds a society from the ground up, there's a huge difference. In America, Australia, and so on was built by these explorers and pioneers and so on. And so the idea that the third world immigrant today that just moseys on in illegally or not, and just takes a job that's already created, already made, and already right there on the table for them just to pick up, that they're not the same as the pioneers and the nation builders and the risk takers that built the nations. Again, particularly the British, but North America, Australia, and Canada, and New Zealand, and so on. And this is the difference. So this claim that we're all a nation of immigrants, that's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. The people that built the nation, even if you look at, say, the 1950s in Australia, some of the and you could probably call them immigrants there, they still had that nation building spirit about them. You look at the houses that were built at the time. They were, fairly basic houses, and there was no sewerage, maybe running water. The roads were rudimentary. There was no sidewalks or pavements, so the people that had to get out on the people that were there had to get, and they had to really create that environment themselves. They had to build their gardens and their yards, and they had to tame the land, if I can use that term, themselves. So they were still, I was straddling the nation builder immigrant type thing, but they were bringing things to the table that were needed, that were necessary, unlike the immigrants of today, which is parasiting, particularly the Indians and so on, Africans, parasiting off the existing wealth that's being created. and by those explorers, pioneers, and nation builders. The people are coming are not nation builders, and they're coming from places that have never been nation builders or ever able to do it, or ever wanted or tried to do it. So Western civilization is uniquely the civilization of nation builders, and this is something that separates them from just the straight-out immigrants that arrive into a ready-made society. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.